Newcastle. So we're still going with that interview. I hope you're enjoying it. So the next stage is actually about racism and also about, yes, oh sorry, it's number 3, part 3.
Hey, I want you to know it's part 3.
He's like part 3.
I was waiting for you to say part 3, you know.
Yeah. So we're up to part 3, guys. And so this is about racism, and we're going to talk about the African gangs in Australia. So make sure you stay tuned and tell us what you think. Alright, see you soon. Oh, also make sure you subscribe, like, share, and drop a comment, because we want to know what you're thinking. And if you agree or disagree, yes, please do it. And yeah, thanks. Bye. So racism in Australia, how has that affected your kids and your parenting? So for example, Aboriginals talk about how they have to basically train their kids, sadly, to not talk back to the police and things like that. And same with Americans. Have you had to do things like that with your kids?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've always had to say to my kids that they need to really I know sometimes I said when you become young men, it's gonna be challenging. It's a very challenging world that you're growing up in. At times you feel like your rights are not your rights. And I've often used America as a reference to really try and educate them about Australia is not far off from American way of doing things. So, you know, because I've had older brothers that have gone through a lot of racism, where they just randomly get picked on because of their skin color, and they were being exposed to a lot of, I suppose, humiliation that they didn't have to go through if they were normal, I suppose, if they were Anglo-Saxon. So I had to really talk to my boys and tell them sometimes you got to swallow your pride and just do the right thing. So try not to hang out in big groups, because no matter what happened, it's always the black kids that are going to get the blame. No matter what, it doesn't matter what happens. If you're with a bunch of people, anything goes wrong, it's the black kids. So just pick your friends carefully. When you have to deal with the authorities, make sure that you are collective. Keep your composure. Don't get don't get too hung up on I'm right sort of situation, because that's where things can get out of control very quickly. And because of your skin color, unfortunately, you can sometimes get a really bad record at a very young age, as young as 14 sometimes, if you have an encounter with the police, even hanging out in a shopping center. I've had some cousins that have got a bad record now because they're just chilling and the police came and they're like, we're not doing anything, we're not going anywhere, we have rights. And they were locked up, and they've got a record for, I suppose, speaking back to the police and stuff like that. So I've always said to my kids, just when you have to deal with the authorities, step back, think about what will come with it, and just do the right thing. And so racism is huge in Australia. So you just got to protect it. I mean, I have to do it, and I'm a woman. I'm always so careful. I'm always careful what I say. I'm always careful what I do. I'm always subconsciously in control of how I move. Like I'd go to a shop and I'll be looking, always trying to like make sure that I don't look suspicious. I'm trying to be so cool that I'm not suspicious. Exactly. But the thing is, people think you're suspicious anyway. It's so annoying, but I have to do that. So yeah, I tell my kids just to be careful, and I say to them, don't wear hoods, don't wear like hooded clothes. You know, like when you go into like a shopping center, take your cap off, don't walk around with big bags. There's nothing trendy about that, because you're just going to get pulled up, you're going to get checked. I mean, I get checked all the time. Like I get pulled up in David Jones and Maya, and they want to search my back. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Sorry. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah. But it happens, so yeah.
Because I know with Noah, even when we go to shops and we would have bought it in another shop, he'll like go straight up to the shop assistant and go, see, we've got a receipt. We have a receipt.
We have a receipt. I do it all the time.
He does it all the time.
I did it to, was it Kmart? Kmart one was the funniest one. Kmart one was the funniest one. I came to the security guys. He was just standing there. I said, here's my receipt. He's like, he looked at me like, no, why are you good? Like, that was really funny. He think that was me.
Yeah, but no, because he's so scared.
Yeah, it's true. And adding to that, adding to what you just said, I think the system was made for to set an example on other people of color. I think here what you just said that the system was not made for their kids. I'm sorry to say that, like kids that are born here, but it's made to set example, just like the other three Sudanese girls that are.
Oh, you mean at the moment are they in the media?
Yeah, how the media that with other people of color, like they make them they ashame them, make them shy. How do you use the word? Like
they shame them.
Yeah, shame them basically. So yeah, I think the system was. I think
the system is not meant for it, but you have a lot of bad apples that have a lot of hate, and I think use the system to take advantage. They use it for their
set examples on other people.
And which is really sad, and I think that's really disgusting. And I think I hear stories, like I did Aboriginal studies at not high school, because like you said, they didn't teach us till end of my high school years. But in uni, they talked about it and what they went through as Aboriginals, and that today, they even get so much racism that to the point where clubs will go, no, we want the African over you, and stuff like that. So I just, it's really sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. Yeah,
I personally think that Australian system is pretty much the institution were founded on racism, period, point blank. Like, I mean, they only abolished the white policy in the, wasn't it in the 70s or 60s? So, I mean, if that is the case, what chances do we have as Black people? I mean, Indigenous people, they were treated like, this is not a race video, is it? So let's not get into that too deeply. Maybe another time. But the institution in Australia have racism embedded in them. So no matter what you do, there's racism there. And so for people like me, when I have to apply for things like jobs, my name will turn people off. Period.
Yeah,
as soon as they see,
we even do that episode about it. I think you should watch our episode. We just did an episode yesterday. We didn't put it up yet, but you should watch it.
Yeah, we did it.
So that's huge. So I think the foundations of Australian institutions and everything like that, where they had a lot of underlying undermining Black people before the immigrant even got here. So they started off with disrespecting the Indigenous people, and they're nothing in their perspective. So I think that is institutional, whether we like it or not. And that's why, for me, trying to get foundations is almost impossible. Like, who says it's not Black people? But they don't bother making things for them, because who are they? They're not, you know what I mean? They're not considered. But anyway, let's do the next question, please.
All right. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. So, all right, this is a hot topic.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about the African youth gangs discussion on the news? How do you feel about it? I know it's quite disgusting. I find it that I know that they've talked about how the African gangs have been exaggerated big time, but they talk about African youths committing crimes is 1%, not even, out of all the crimes, kind of thing. So how do you feel about it? So what's...
I think the African gang, or do they call it the African? Yeah, they call it the African gang. I think there's a lot of the issue stemmed from the media and what the sort of message that the media wanted to portray to the general public, which is an everyday Australian. Unfortunately, an everyday Australian is an ignorant one. I'm sorry to say. Please do not cut this part out. That is the sad truth. And the media loves to feed the ignorant everyday person information they want. So there's been an issue in where they focused on trying to paint a picture for all the African people, that African young kids or youth that are causing problems, which is a very small number. But then again, when you compare that number to the African community in Australia, it is fairly big, to be honest. Like, honestly speaking, if you looked at the number of African people in Australia, and then you look at the 1% that are causing problems, that is a big number. So we, as African parents, we cannot say there's no problem. There is a problem. But what we need to look at is what is causing the problem, what is making these kids do what they're doing. And then also, the media also need to look at the issue with sensitivity, because if you don't do that, you're sending out a message that is going to only cause or enforce more political identity, where kids would just hang out with their own type. And this is where the problem would stem. Because if you imagine putting like a bunch of there was a case in Brisbane a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, there was a murder case with African kids. There was a Brisbane, I think, a gang from the Brisbane or something. I wouldn't call them gang. I'll just call them teenagers, right? And there was a murder that eventuated from the incident. And the media jumped to it and said, "Oh, there's all these gangs, and they're doing this and they're doing that." They're not gangs. They're not coerced. They're not organized like criminal gangs, but they are young kids doing the wrong thing because they are bored. They don't have anything to do. Their parents are too busy working, so they don't have the time to look after the kids and also pay their taxes. Parents are working to feed these kids, and if you're a single mom like me with two teenagers and I have to go to work, then I leave my kids at home. They happen to maybe spend a lot of time at home playing video games. If I'm not home because I'm working, I need to provide for them. There can be a problem there. So I think the whole issue of the African gang originated with how Australian government had decided to originally bring African women with kids alone. That's what they were doing. They were not taking men. They were only taking single moms with kids. If you took a single mom, if I took you out of your environment and dumped you in a foreign country where you didn't speak the language, you didn't know how to fend for yourself, and you had to do everything alone, things are going to fall apart very easily. So I think that's what happened in our community. But I do feel like the media is exaggerating the problem hugely. There are lots of fake news, as Donald Trump would say. So I think in the media, a lot of fake news. But I still feel as African parent, we need to really pay attention and start talking to our kids, make sure we know where they're going, who they're hanging out with, like making sure you're entertaining kids, because kids need to be busy. If they're not busy, that's when they get up to shit. Yeah. They get up to no good when they're not busy.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've been here only a year. But I find out that like kids are not that busy. They're not into like where I am from. It's crazy out there. Like I am constantly with my cousins. We do a lot of things. Kids are not it's true. Kids are not engaged. Like they don't do a lot of like interact with other people. They don't go out that much. They don't have a lot of things to do.
I think
because where I am from my experience, I'm constantly with my cousins in Africa. We do a lot of things.
I think that's also part when we were talking about how you send your kids back to Africa, because in Australia you have everything. You can sit on the computer all day.
Yeah, play Xbox every day. Yeah.
They talk about internet destroying.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of
smartphones. There's stuff that they see on their phones. Like they don't spend much time with their kids, and their kid is on the phone, on the tablet the whole time. The stuff that the media feed them from those tablets is just really bad. Yeah, it's true.
And I think that plays a big part in the Western world, especially where kids don't go out as much. And I think that's become a new culture here.
The more they're bored, the more they want to get lit. You know how Americans say, "I want to get lit." They jump on tables and smash stuff and do crazy things. True.
I personally think that I actually blame the government for what is going on. First of all, they're the one. It's always all these issues with gang issues always happen around election time. So I feel like they're trying to do what I think they call it populism. Is it populism where they
around the world?
Well, like how Trump got elected is just targeting a particular group and using them against the majority. So I feel like if the Australian government had not picked single mom with kids to try and help, they should have tried and help have really strong support networks. So when people come here, kids were involved in activities, so they're not completely bored. I mean, they get here, they get given support for 3 months, and then you're left on your own. That's not enough. If you don't want problems, you got to focus on trying to make sure these people adjust to the culture and the society and the way things are done in Australia, and give them enough time. 3 months is not enough. 500 hours of learning a language is not going to get anyone anywhere. That's what they do. They give you 500 hours of English, and then they'll get the kids into English for second language. While you're in English for second language, they give you stuff that you would have done in like grade 1. So they don't respect that these people are people, and they don't have enough programs in place to make sure that these people are busy. So they get bored. They don't have nothing to do as young youth. I've got young boys, and my main concern for them they're teenagers now. My main concern was, when my kids become teenagers, I want to make sure they don't spend a day at home. that they're busy, keeping them busy, getting them to do sport. But to do that, you need the time. So
Exactly.
I need to stop working and do that. Otherwise, they'll be bored doing nothing. And what do you do when I'm bored, I do a lot of crap that I shouldn't do. And I'm an adult. You know what I mean? Like, so anyway, moving forward, I think it's just to answer your question, I think it's important that we don't always look at it like a gang issue. It's not a gang related issue. I think it's just teenagers doing teenagers things that some of them might really misbehave and do the wrong thing, but the media seems to just focus on them and the camera's always on them. And that's where we're getting it wrong, because the more attention you give them, the more wilding they'll get. And I think if they did their thing and nobody pays attention, they're not going to think anything. They're just going to become like the common loser. Like when somebody drinks too much, a teenager, and you get kicked out from a pub, you hang around for a little bit and then you get bored and you go home and you sleep it off. But if you get drunk and you get thrown out, and before you know, this media's taking photos of you and you're like, hey, this is where the problem starts. So the media needs to back off. They need to leave them alone. And you know, like if they want to do anything, they should be painting positive picture now, because they've been painting the terrible image for African kids in Australia for so long. It's ridiculous. Like if you looked at the success stories of African Australian, the number is amazing. Like this, I know children that I know young adults that are doctors. So many lawyers, I only met maybe 2 troublemakers, like gangster type of kids that would give you the crips. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's a crazy thing, because Australians are known to be lazy.
They work their asses off. They bust their asses off to study really well and do. Because a lot of them came from nothing. So they're so driven. It's not even like nothing. You know, when the Italian came to Australia, they came with nothing, but they didn't come from a war-torn country. They were just living famine. It was different. A lot of us African came from torn countries where we were escaping persecution. So we really want to make a better life for ourselves. So we don't take it. It's not a very lightly thing. Like when you come to the West, you become responsible for your family back home. They have a lot of responsibilities. No matter how old you are, you've got to send money back home. You've got to feed your family, you know. So there's a lot, and there's a lot of them that do really well. But the media, like I said before, they just focus on the minority, just the small percentage that is causing problem. That's our problem, and the media need to let it go, man. Pass.
Yeah, it's true.
I know. I agree.
After World War II, even the time of Benito Mussolini, when Italy was not working, where do they all go to? They all migrate to America, Australia.
Yeah.
They all came
when Italy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When Italy was not working, Benito Mussolini after the World War II. So those are the people that would even look at you and sort of go back to where you're from, and you look at them, you're like, oh, what's your surname? Your surname is that. That's Italian.
Yeah.
Like your people are not even from here. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's true.
It's interesting, like it's like one day on the news, there was a Greek guy, had the strongest Greek accent you could think of, telling people to go back to where they came from. And I'm like, no. I was just like, sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm a true believer that this is Aboriginals country.
Yeah.
Really, white people should not say that.
Yeah.
Like you should go, like that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's true.
But anyway, let's keep going before we go on too long.
Yeah, go too long.
So why do you think some kids are struggling and joining these gangs or whatever, joining these groups? But I guess we kind of said that there aren't gangs.
Yeah, there ain't gangs.
I think
basically like
I think it's just kids wanting to find their group.
They're bored.
The media is the wrong way. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think the kids are just bored. They don't have a lot of activities to do, so they just wanna find fun things to do. And if there's nothing fun to do, you turn to your cousin who's also doing nothing, and your cousin's got a cousin who's doing nothing. Because we African, we're a very collective society, so we work as family. Like that story in Brisbane that I was telling you earlier. Like 5 of the kids came from one family. They're all cousins and they're all locked up now because they're families. So they hang out together, collective. So I think when kids have nothing to do, they'll just, get together and sometimes just maybe get in the wrong place, wrong time. Sometimes some of them can do the wrong thing, by the way. I'm not going to defend them all. Like I've caught a kid with I'm so savage. I caught a child with some pot in his pocket, I slapped him. I'm like, you're not gonna do this. You're the one that's giving all black kids bad reputation.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yeah.
You don't do that in Australia. I don't encourage violence, but I have to slap this one.
Just in case. Good idea.
Yeah. So that's what
So I hope you enjoyed that. We have one more episode to go. It's gonna be just what tips. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
And it'll be tips.
And make sure you watch my Africa's Awakening.
Yes, make sure you watch Africa's Awakening. It happens every Tuesday. Doesn't it, babe?
Yeah, every Tuesday.
Well, we try to make it happen every Tuesday, but
every Tuesday, yeah.
So make sure you stay tuned. And Noah talks about, you want to talk about what you talk about?
I talked about the elections in Tanzania, and I've talked about the Chinese fish factory in Gambia, and I have talked about the protest in Nigeria, the End SARS, hashtag End SARS protest, and I have talked about the gender violence protest going on in Namibia.
And if there's anything you guys want to know or want Noah to focus on, drop us a comment, let us know, and Noah will have a look and give you his feedback. Alright, make sure you stay tuned, guys.